Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for the series finale of Devs, of course being episode 8, and as you guys know, I have really been enjoying this series so far. I think it's been very effective in its execution, in its concepts, and things like that. But I do think very much in this second half, it is very much veered away from its characters and focused a little too much on just its concepts and its themes and things like that. And those things are interesting. Its themes of determinism are things that have intrigued me. But because of the way episode 7 turned out, how predictable it was, despite a lot of it being very effective, I just wasn't expecting a lot from this finale. I kind of just went in thinking this was going to be very predictable. It wasn't going to give me anything that special. It wasn't really going to be anything I walk away from. I just kind of thought that it was obvious that this wasn't going to be that strong of a finale, but I have to say, I was actually pleasantly surprised, because I really love this finale quite a bit. I know this is a very divisive episode. I've heard a lot of different thoughts of how people feel about this final episode, but I thought that it was very effective. I really liked what they ended up doing here. It was definitely a simple episode, but it didn't go in the direction that I really thought it was going to, and that's something that I was definitely very happy about for sure, but we're just getting to right now. So with an episode like this, I usually go from most important to least important, but everything that happened in this episode was very important. There was so much that went down here. There was so many things that were introduced to us, and there really is a lot to get into. So I think the big thing to talk about is really that confrontation between Lily and Forrest. The whole show has pretty much been building up to this, Lily going into devs and finally realizing what it's all about, discovering the technology, discovering the machine, because she knows a lot about determinism. What she doesn't know is just how far it can really go. She doesn't know exactly how this is all going to work. And so when Forrest is laying it all out for her, you can tell this is what he does with pretty much everyone. This is his way of misting her. This is his way of getting her to know. This is his way of really trying to get her to buy into his way of thinking. I would imagine he's done this with Cailee. He's probably done this with anyone else that's ever worked at devs before, and you can see that Lily is kind of buying it, but also kind of not. She buys the fact that he very much does believe this, but what she doesn't buy is that this is all going to happen. Like, there's nothing she can do to prevent it from happening. That she just simply does not believe. When he's laying it all out to her, she's seeing how they're going to go about this. And I like that she got to see how this was all going to play out. It's similar to how Katie and Forrest have watched this half a dozen times. We haven't really known what they've seen, and what we see here is pretty gruesome, because we know that they know that Lily is going to die. I thought that this was always a misdirect, but we realize what's actually going to go on. Basically, Lily is going to get Forrest into this elevator. She's going to hold him at gunpoint with Kenton's gun and things like that, and eventually when they're in the elevator, it's going to come to a point where she's going to shoot him, and it's going to break the glass, and so because that, the elevator is going to crash, and they're both going to die, and that's something that is going to happen. It's predetermined. It's not preventable, and basically, it's not preventable, and basically, there's no way that she can stop this. And you can tell that Lily she can't believe that he's saying this. And I have to say, Nick Offerman did a really great job, not just throughout this episode, but really throughout this entire show, with all the crazy techno babble and just all of this bullshit. He's done a really great job of making it sound very sincere. You really do believe that Forrest believes this. You really do believe that this is something that Forrest holds dearly. He believes every single word that he's saying. None of this is fooling anyone. This is something that only someone as crazy and as just deluded as Forrest could really say in that way. And so I think the show has done a really good job of just showing that even though Forrest is someone that has done so many irrational things, you can almost understand why he feels this way. You can almost understand why he would believe something like this just because of what he's been through. The show's done an excellent job with that so far. But obviously, Lily does not want this to go the way that Forrest is telling her it's going to go. She wants to do whatever she can to try to undo this. And so, the second they got in that elevator, I knew something was going to happen. Something was going to occur that was going to make Lily realize, yeah, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing what you want me to do. So when she tossed that gun out there, that was an amazing moment. Lily's been a very inconsistent character, I feel like, but this is one of her strongest moments yet. You really feel her heroicness when she tosses that window out. She is really one of the only people to directly oppose Forrest. Lyndon tried, but Lyndon did not get to confront Forrest in the way that Lily did. And Lily is the first person to put a stop to this and not go along with it. Because even Lyndon was eventually manipulated into believing that he was supposed to go over the railing. Lily was not. Lily is changing the narrative entirely, and I love the look on Forrest's face. He's so shocked that this happened. He can't fathom the idea that something that him and Katie predicted, something that was in their narrative, didn't happen, that she went off script. This does not seem possible in that way. And again, it felt like if this situation were to play out, this is very much how this would occur, because there are people that just are as crazy and just as demented as Forrest and Katie are, and I think that was a really great scene. I love how Katie's also freaking out, but we think that after this, maybe they're going to be okay. Maybe they're going to survive this. But then we see what's probably the most surprising moment of the entire episode, and that's what Stewart decided to do here. I was not expecting Stewart to be the one to basically stop all of this. He actually turns on the button that triggers something in the elevator. I don't know exactly what it was called, but it triggers something within the elevator, drops them both down. They both die pretty much, not instantly. They die pretty much from the crash and things like that. Oh, he overrides the like electromagnetic field is what he does, and so he pressed some button and that triggers something in the elevator. They both slowly end up dying, and yeah, so that you would think is it. You would think that's the end of it, and here's the thing. A lot of people have been confused by this action. Stewart is not the most developed character. If anything, he probably was the character that was the least developed out of everyone. But I really do see this as Stewart is someone who was very much believing. I think he always, while he was very loyal to Forrest, I think there was always an inkling that something about this just wasn't very ethical. Even I think back to the scene when Lyndon is first fired and, he tells Lyndon, like, this is legit, like, you need to leave. This wasn't him saying, like, this wasn't him doing this because Forrest told him to. This was something that he was doing because he genuinely cared about Lyndon. And I think knowing that Lyndon died, this is him avenging Lyndon's death, but also finally trying to stop Forrest, basically getting to do what Lyndon couldn't. This is what Lyndon wanted to do. He wanted to prove that Forrest just should not be someone that is in control of this technology. He's far too irrational. He's far too erratic. He is far too unpredictable to be trusted with this. And I think he was absolutely right in doing so. And the moment where Stewart says to Katie, like, I did this because it was predetermined. I felt it. I absolutely felt that moment, and I just loved it. I love the way that played out. I thought that was such an amazing moment, and Stephen McKinley Henderson just did such a great job in that scene. I was very impressed by the way that whole thing played out. And again, I really wouldn't have had it any other way. I think that this was absolutely the right direction to go in. I think the way they handled that was really well done, and I was definitely very, very pleased by the way the first half of this episode played out. But the real question was what was going to happen after this, because, we had this whole confrontation go down. You think that would be it. You think that would be the end of the episode, but no, there's still about 20 minutes left to my surprise. I was very shocked to see that there was still like half the episode left, and I was like, all right, what is really going to go down now? Well, now it really is all about the aftermath, and I think what they ended up doing here was actually really effective. We get an idea of what the plan actually was. Forrest's plan, we realize, was to never bring back Amaya. He never wanted to bring her back in the real world, because even I was confused by this. I thought that episode 7 was going to end with Amaya being brought back and him, trying to bring her back into the real world. That was never his plan. His plan was to die. That's what he wanted to do. And that's why everything was so fuzzy after that, because Stewart was someone that was going to stop it. And that's why they couldn't predict it anymore, because this is the moment where the determinism hasn't worked out. And I like that Katie and Forrest realized for the first time that maybe they were wrong in thinking this. They were so fixated on this concept of determinism that there was really no other possible route that they could go in. This was the absolute direction. That's all it was. There was no other possible solution for them other than determinism. And I like that they realize that they've been duped in this way by Lily, and they realize that, Lily has basically committed original sin in that way. There's really good, like, biblical sort of symbolic, the really good symbolism there to like biblical stuff. That's something that Alex Garland has always done in a lot of his works, and you definitely do see that here, and I thought that was definitely very effective for sure, the way they played that out. But what was even more effective to me is what ends up happening to Lily and Forrest, because I was not expecting them to go into this afterlife of sorts, where basically we realize Lily basically ends up where she was with Sergey the day before he went into devs for the first time, not knowing how that pitch was going to work out. And we remember this, it seems like eons ago that this happened, but it was in the first episode where, he went over to Forrest. He was just a college student, and Forrest was so impressed by his advanced ability to predict things. And now it makes sense why Forrest latched onto that so well, because Forrest is someone that can, because the dev's technology can predict things so well, and he thought that Sergey would be a good asset. So now it all just kind of tracks in that way. So Lily's brought back there. Meanwhile, Forrest gets to live out the life that he wanted with Amaya. It turns out that his whole idea was that he wanted to live in the afterlife with her. It was not to bring her back. It was to live in a time where his wife and Amaya survived, and that they have no recollection of what actually happened. The only people that have a recollection is Forrest and Lily. Everyone else, they are unaware to what's going on. And I think this is a really cool idea. The idea of choosing your own fate and going back and redoing the choices that set you down this path. I do actually really like that idea. I think there's a lot that can be said there. There's many choices that we've made where we kind of go back and think, what if we did this a different way? What if we have taken a different path in life? Sort of like an alternate universe sort of thing. And I like the way we kind of alternate between both futures here. One in which they're peaceful and happy, the other one they're in this like hellish sort of world where everything's just dark and muddy and things like that. I think there was a very, very effective scene for sure. Offerman and Mizuno both did a really great job there. I think this episode really was Sonoya Mizuno's strongest in terms of her acting. I know people were very on and off with her, but I think she definitely did win me over in this episode. I really did like what she ended up doing here. For sure. And I think the moment where Forrest is telling Lily that, now she has a chance to make things right, it actually makes a lot of sense with what this story really has been for Lily. Because if you've noticed, and I don't think the show has done a terribly great job at presenting this, is what they were trying to say with Sergey is that this was not a good relationship. You see when Lily wants his phone because she knows that the Sudoku app isn't what it appears to be. That he's actually working with Russian intelligence and things like that, and that he has all this inside access. She knows about all of this already, and he doesn't want to show her. He wants to continue suppressing that information. And while in the beginning she was completely fine with that, now she's not okay with that. And so I think they actually did do a good job here of showing that relationship was not healthy. This relationship relationship was not good for her. What was good for her was her relationship with Jamie, and that these two should have been together from the beginning, because we know that they didn't really break up over anything that bad. It was simply just they lost touch. But if there's been anything that this has done, it's that it's made Lily realize just how important Jamie really is, how often he goes to bat for her, how he's always there to protect her. This is something that Lily has very much noticed. And so I like that the episode ends with her, and the series actually ends with her finding Jamie and embracing him and thinking that maybe this is her chance for them to get back together. It almost kind of makes me wish that they had not had gotten them back together before Jamie's death, because I think this actually makes a lot more sense than her just randomly wanting to get back together with Jamie. Now it actually makes a lot of sense, because she's seeing that while Sergei is someone who is kind of cold and aloof, Jamie was very open with her. He generally cares about her. He will put his life on the line for her if he has to. And this is her chance to relive that again. And I think that is very effective. But there is a negative aspect there that I think the show's also presenting it as. I think they're showing the positives, but they're also showing the negatives, because at the end of the day, while what Forrest is doing was in his mind a good thing, and the idea of trying to absolve yourself of certain actions that you've done in the past and try to rid yourself of that, again, I understand that. But you also have to question, is it really worth it? Because still, he ruined Lily's life. He stripped everything away from her. Sergei was taken away, Jamie was taken away, and it really is all because of Forrest and Katie. And I don't think this at all, takes that away from them. I don't think this at all absolves them of that. Yes, Forrest killing, being responsible for the death of his daughter, and well, he didn't kill them, but being responsible for the death of his daughter and his wife, yes, he's absolved from that. But what he's not absolved from is all of the casualties and all of the despair that this technology has caused other people in the past. Lyndon is still dead. Sergei is dead. Lily's life has been stripped away from her, and now she's dead, of course. Stuart lost Lyndon in that way. There's so much that he has done, and I don't think it at all takes away from that. So I think the show did a really good job at showing that while Forrest has gone to do what he set out to do, this might not always be the only reality. There could be other realities out there. As Forrest says, there are dozens of possibilities now. We see all those black circles. I really do feel that those black circles that we see are all alternate realities, and that eventually they're going to end up in other realities where things might not go quite as well. But for the time being, they can at least relish in, Forrest can at least relish in what he did right and try to enjoy what his life could have been like. But also have the knowledge that this isn't really his life. This is what it is now, and this isn't actually real. And I think that is definitely a really cool idea. I think that's something they definitely did do a really good job with, and I like the way we did wrap things up there overall. I thought overall this was definitely very effective for a finale. The final scene that we get with Katie and Senator Lang as well, I like that as well, because it does a good job of showing that this technology is definitely dangerous, but it also does a good job of showing that that plot line is still very much a thing, that Senator Lang wanted to acquire this technology. They just didn't really do all that much with it, and I will say that is probably my one sort of flaw with this episode, is just the stuff with Senator Lang is not satisfying because they did absolutely nothing with that storyline. So I wouldn't really say that was the most satisfying way to end it. I get it that Katie is now basically in charge of all this technology, and she still wants to make sure it's out there and that someone can still, take a hold of it. But we only really had one or two scenes with her prior to this, so I just didn't really feel like that was the best way to end it. I think the way they ended it with Lily and Jamie was definitely the right way for sure. So yeah, there was a lot that I actually really did love about this finale. I thought it was definitely very effective for sure. The directing here from Alex Garland, I think this might have been his strongest episode directing-wise, because he did a really good job of showing what he really was trying to do with this show, what his whole message was. It was definitely very clear, and I always say it's not always the best idea to direct and write every single thing that you do, but I feel like for this, it made a lot of sense because his vision was very clear throughout this show, and I think that's definitely the case for this finale as well. He did a really good job of showing what he wanted. The very sort of eerie and dark tone, but also that hopeful and bittersweet tone that was in this episode, I thought was very well realized, and I was just very impressed with what he did here. And his storytelling, his writing is definitely something that is very much going to stick out to me because he's such a big fan. He's such a big director in terms of high concepts. He is definitely all about high concepts, especially when it comes to this show. And I think that's something that through and through was definitely present here. The themes of determinism, but even more so, I think the theme of fate and also the theme of consequence, I think, is really a big part of this show. I think the show isn't so much about determinism as it is about consequences and what happens when you get caught up in your own fantasies, something that Forrest very much did, and he did pay a price for that. Even though, yes, he got to see his creation play out the way that he wanted it to, he still very much got to live what he wanted. He still got to see it through, and even though, yes, it did play out in that way, he was still played. This technology is gone now. The it's no longer in his hands. Lily, things did not play out the way that he thought it would play out, and you could see that very much did kind of it definitely did set something within him, and I think that was definitely very effective the way that Garland went about that, and I think that's something he's just done a very good job with this show is the writing here. And that's something I was definitely a fan of. Again, I think really my biggest flaws when it comes to this show, because again, I think there's a lot of stuff that this finale did a really good job with. The way that it focused specifically on Jamie and Lily as well towards the end actually did make a lot of sense. It shows why that relationship was so prevalent. I just wish it would have gotten a little bit more of a focus throughout this season because it often felt like we would kind of substitute that for them just doing more stuff with Sergei's death and focusing more on how to bring down devs and not as much about them rekindling their relationship. And that's why them getting back together in at the end of episode 6 just never felt that natural to me. It never felt like a natural development. It always just felt like something that Garland did specifically to make the death of Jamie feel that much, have that much more of a weight to it and have that much more of an effect on Lily than it would have when, in my opinion, I actually think, it would have made more sense if we would have spent the whole series of Lily not realizing just how important Jamie really is until she realizes how unhealthy her relationship with Sergei was in contrast. I think it would have been that much more effective if they would have gone in that direction, just because it would have been a little bit more satisfying of an arc for Lily. Because, yeah, I will admit it, Lily is absolutely the weakest part of the show in terms of characters, and that's not something you usually say with a show this good, is that the lead character is the weakest part, but I think that very much was the case, because at the end of the day, there's nothing that special about Lily. She made up all this stuff with like her mental illnesses and her schizophrenia and things like that, and that obviously wasn't true. And I thought maybe that would go in a direction. Episode 2, I thought they were going to do something where she's all alone and she's talking to her mom about how she has all these friends, but that never really went anywhere. What they did with her and Sergey again, I thought was good in this episode, but it is something I wish just got a little bit more of a focus of, and that's really, I'd say, my biggest issue with the show is that Lily just never had that definitive character arc that we could really relate to. Yes, she's very much a hero for what she did. Yes, there were some really great scenes with her, but at the end of the day, I don't think she was the most well-written character solely because she was very hard to identify most of the time. And when we eventually found out what was going on with her, she just wasn't as interesting. When it was basically revealed that there wasn't anything that special about her, I just didn't think she was that interesting of a character. I think the time to have given her more was when she was in that mental institution, and that's why I really wish we would have gotten to see a little bit more of a focus there, because I think it would have done more for Lily's character. Um, but alas, that was not the case, and I do think that we were sacrificed character often in this show. But what we didn't get with Lily, we did get in pretty much everyone else. I think Forrest, Katie, and Lyndon and Kenton, those really are the solid characters of the show. Jamie also was a really good character, despite also being a bit one note. But Lyndon and Katie and Forrest, I think, really are the best characters in the show. I loved what they ended up doing with them, what the show had to say about people that are prophets, and Lily's line in this episode of saying, like, you know, the thing about messiahs, they're false prophets, again, I think really underlies the big message of this show. It's really about, like I said, people getting caught up in their own fantasies, and so much so that they start to believe it, because at the end of the day, Forrest and Katie are still evil people. These are not good people at all. They were very much caught up in their own delusions, and they very much believed it in that way. And so because of that, they justified every single dastardly thing that they did, in the sense that, oh, it was predetermined, oh, it had to happen. And I feel like that's something that Garland did a really good job with kind of taking note of, is showing just again, the way that evil people justify themselves. I thought was definitely something that, again, he just did a very good job with throughout the show. And I thought the writing overall was just really strong in this show overall. Despite the fact that, again, we do have a weak lead character, everything else was just very strong here for sure. Cinematography as well was just always gorgeous on this show. So many just amazing shots in this episode alone. Again, specifically just the contrast between the good world and the bad world, stuff like that was just really fulfilling, really well done. I do think at points it did get a little pretentious, I will definitely say that. But then again, these characters were pretentious. I mean, hell, Forrest literally named Devs Deus originally, and he just called it Devs as a way to cover it up because it was a Roman V. It was a Roman U, and he didn't want to reveal that to anyone. So I feel like some of the pretentious stuff was actually kind of necessary for the show, because our characters were also very much pretentious. And so stuff like that I thought was actually really well done. The score as well was just always great throughout the show. It was very thrilling, it was very eerie, and just really did a great job, I think, of just seeping you into the environment that the show was trying to create. Again, I just think that the two things that bring it down, one, obviously, like I said, Lily being a weak main character, but also I do think the show at points was just a little too ponderous. I think there were just a few too many scenes of characters monologuing, not really getting into what they really wanted to do, what their goal was. I think there was just a little too much of that, and there were some plot points here that were actually dropped, like the whole Senator Lang and Kenton thing. Never went back to it. It was brought up once. I really thought that was going to go somewhere, and it didn't happen. Or like I said, with Lily talking to her mom on the phone about how she doesn't have that many people in her life, didn't really go back to that either. So I do feel like my biggest issue with this show is that sometimes it sacrificed character in favor of its deeper themes and concepts that are very well handled, concepts that are very ambitious, and I applaud Garland's ambition for that. I applaud Garland for not making an easy show at all. I hate safe shit. You guys know that. I can't stand safe shows because they're not interesting to me. Stuff like this is far more interesting. Stuff like this is definitely something that we don't normally see, and I really do applaud Garland for going there. But I do think that out of everything I've seen from him, this is absolutely his weakest project, just because I don't think the themes and characters were as well mixed and had as much going on as they could have been. I feel like there should have been just as much character as there was themes, and I feel like very often it felt like there was one that was presented more than the latter. I feel like very often there was one that got way more focus than the other. And I feel like that was a bit of an issue. But overall, guys, it really does not take away from how much I really did enjoy this show for sure. I think it was definitely very effective. It definitely did not waste my time. I did not come away from this finale at all think I wasted my time. If anything, I feel like it kind of renewed some of my love for this show, reminded me why I was really enjoying it. For a while, and I think they did a really good job with that for sure. I think overall this was a very effective finale. So now I am going to rate both the finale and the series as a whole of Devs. So for the series finale overall, I am actually going to give that episode an A. I loved it a lot. I thought it did a really good job with closing out many storylines, giving a little bit more focus to some of the characters, specifically Lily and things like that, and I really did like seeing that. And I think overall it's just a really great way to end things. But the series overall, I am going to give a B plus. But overall, guys, that's it. Devs is now over. The first original FX on Hulu show, and I think it was definitely a success. I do think that it definitely had a good audience and things like that. I think they definitely did prove that this is something that could very much go far. I'm excited to see what else FX on Hulu turns out. I'm definitely excited to see Alex Garland hopefully do more TV. This was definitely more successful than other film to TV transition things that I've seen before. This was far more successful than that, and I think he definitely did prove himself on that front. And I hope next time, he can just kind of look at this as a learning experience. Just the few things that he didn't do right, he can improve upon, and it can be as good as Ex Machina. It can be as good as Annihilation. But that's really it for my review of Devs. Let me know what you guys thought of this series overall, left your thoughts in it. Again, I apologize for getting this out so late, guys. I wish I was more on top of it with the show, but just didn't happen. But at least I was able to finally wrap it up. I'm going to do the same for Better Call Saul soon. And I'm also going to review the new Hulu show, Miss America, the other FX on Hulu show. I'm going to review that soon as well, so look forward to that. But that's really it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.